So I went and cleared out everything that was obviously outdated. We had, of course, like bullet points on speculation about what TV kit might be and rumors of the new Apple TV remote.
We should talk about that. We get those predictions right.
In the realm of follow-up, we have more follow-up about the TiVo that neither Marco nor I cares about.
Oh, you care. You need to care. Actually, there's one item about the TiVo that's not in the follow-up that I want to briefly mention. So since last week, I think more people have either followed our links to the TiVo bolts or seen people tweeting about it, or, it's made the rounds in the tech news sites and stuff, and people have looked at it and listened to my comments about how I can't believe that they made a thing that you can't stack something on top of. And a lot of people have responded with other TV-connected devices that are unstackable in various ways. One of the ones that came up a lot was the Boxy Box. Do you guys remember that?
I do.
It basically looked like a cube tilted on its corner and then like set down into the table, so that like it's sort of a cube on an angle. But it wasn't actually a cube. They chopped off part of it. Anyway, it's clearly nothing can go on top of it, because if it was a cube just resting normally on the table, it'd work fine, but it's tilted and then the corners are chopped off, and that's ridiculous. The reason I think the TiVo Bolt is worse than the Boxy Box and those other things is that the TiVo Bolt, like I said on the show, it's like thumbing its nose at you. It's so close to being just a flat box, but they said, you know what? Screw you. We're bending it. Like, it's not a, because the Boxy Box, I give it a pass. Like, oh, they're making a little piece of art. It's like a sculpture. It's like, it's not even close to, like, it is clearly never going to be something you can stack. Also, it's not widering. The Boxy Box is a plain old normal proportion box that you put under a TV, in terms of like, it's around the size of a regular TiVo. It's around the size of like a Blu-ray player or a game console or anything like that. It's exactly flat on all sides, and then they just bent it. And that, I feel, is just the worst. Yeah, and then one other item is not here. People have already started opening the thing up and figuring out if they can upgrade the little 2.5-inch drive to whatever the max capacity 2.5-inch drives they have, and apparently that's successful. So if people are buying this, even though, again, this is not the high-end TiVo, and the TiVo folks themselves have had a series of Q&As and stuff where they've re-emphasized, not that, this wasn't a question, like we said in the last show. This is not the Pro product. They still sell a Pro product that has more features and more storage and more tuners and everything. And they said, don't worry, eventually we will come out with the Pro model. Whether the Pro model will also be bent, will it even be called the Bolt? We don't know. They just basically said, this product is not for you, people who want the highest end TiVo. And they were pretty candid. I wish I could find this Q&A. Did we link it last week? Maybe we didn't. Anyway, the guy who was talking was from TiVo, was basically saying, look, he's talking to a bunch of very enthusiastic TiVo fans. Look, and he's saying, I know you guys don't want this because it doesn't have lots of storage and it's not big and fancy and has fewer tuners, and it's like basically a downgrade from the one you have now. This is not for you, but basically if we just continue to make products for you, we would go out of business. We need to make a low-end product that is distinctive and appealing. He was also basically defending the crazy shape, saying that's what we have to do to stay in business. We have to find a way to sell something to people who otherwise wouldn't buy a TiVo. There are not enough people like me who want the high-end TiVo to keep us in business. I think he said something like they got 150,000 new customers last year, as in people who hadn't previously owned TiVos, like new to TiVo customers, and that's just not enough. So what they're trying to do is make a cheap product that will stand out, that people will notice it. They're like, oh, it's that crazy bent thing that's white. I mean, I don't know if that's noticing in a good way or a bad way, but hey, it's noticing. And have it be an actual good product, like have interesting features, be faster, be more responsive, all that good stuff. Have the automatic commercial skipping and everything. So this is one of their many ploys to stay in business. It's sad that the high-end customers can't sustain them as a company. I'm not quite sure what their expenses are, or, it's not like they're Netflix where they're licensing content or something. They're just making, basically a little computer that you attach to your TV. Anyway.
And making hardware is easy.
Well, it's not the same as like what is your burn rate? Like, how many employees do you need? And especially if you've been doing it for many, many years, I guess just 150,000 is just not enough sales, and you just need to sell more of them. So I want TiVo to stay in business. So I guess everyone should wait for them to come out with the high-end TiVo and then buy the most expensive one and then throw it in the garbage. Whatever. I just want them to stay in business. So anyway, the actual follow-up that was in here is the question from last week. What kind of TiVo Bolt features could possibly come through a software update to existing TiVo owners, to the Romeo models, which is the old high-end one? And someone from TiVo, this is at TiVo Design on Twitter, said quick mode, which is a thing that's like smart speed where you watch 30% faster. and channel logos in the guide are two items that are coming through a software update. Not mentioned is the thing that skips commercials, which is totally technically possible to bring to the other ones. Quick mode was the one I had a question about, and apparently that's coming. They didn't mention the commercial skipping, and that could just be like, oh, we're going to save that for the other models to make you upgrade, which, whatever, I'm fine. I'll if they come out with a new high-end TiVo, I will probably buy it. History has shown that I will probably buy it. So I think that's it for the Bolt.
We should note that Jeremy Clarkson has tweeted today, which in and of itself is unremarkable, but he has tweeted, with a skeleton crew filming for Amazon Prime's new motoring program, spelled incorrectly, has begun. And it has a shot of, what are these cars? This is a LaFerrari, a McLaren...
P1.
Thank you, the P1 and whatever the Ferrari du jour of the hour is.
No, it's a Porsche. It's the 918.
Oh, that's the 918? Oh, it looks
Come on. You've been away from these shows. You can't even identify. This is, as I tweeted, this is the, when are they going to get to the fireworks factory? Because in the sad last season of Top Gear, they were like, oh, finally, when the LaFerrari comes out, we're going to test it. We're going to test all these hybrid supercars or whatever. Are they all hybrid? I forget if the P1 is hybrid. Maybe not. Anyway, we're going to test all these top-end supercars against each other. Because they tested the 918 on its own, they tested the P1 on its own, and the LaFerrari came out and they tested it on its own, and like, now we're going to have these guys do a shootout. And like the very last episode where they were all together, like, oh, the manufacturers wouldn't let us race them against each other. So sorry, guys, we're working on it, but right now they're all big babies because they're all afraid their car's going to lose, so they don't want them to race each other. We're trying to work something out. And eventually it's like, hey, we've worked something out. They've all agreed to race under whatever conditions. And then Clarkson went and punched somebody, and the show was over.
That's absolutely
pretty good
right.
summary.
So I was like,
Yes.
when are they going to get to the fireworks factory? They kept teasing, I want to see that showdown between those three cars. That's exactly what I want to see. So I am super excited that this Amazon show, the first picture they show is, guess what? We got those three cars. Presumably we're going to race them against each other.
The other follow-up we had is this big kerfuffle that's been going around, particularly as we record on Wednesday, with regard to battery life for the two different A9s. Apparently, both Samsung and TSMC, what does that stand for? Taiwan
Semiconductor Manufacturer Company, something?
Something like that. Apparently, both of them are fabbing the A9, and apparently one of these things is not like the other, you could say. So, Marco, you were talking about this earlier today. Would you like to fill us in on some of the details?
Well, unfortunately, we don't know a lot yet. It might not be a story, but it might be a story. And it's at the time we record this on Wednesday night, it's way too early to say whether there's anything here or whether this is just a couple of people getting weird test results. The gist of it is, so we know for sure that the A9 chip in the iPhone 6, as you mentioned, is being fabbed by two companies, TSMC and Samsung, and they have two different manufacturing processes at those two companies. The Samsung one is actually the smaller feature size. That Samsung is 14 nanometer, TSMC is 16. So you would expect the smaller feature size one, being Samsung, to have better battery life because it uses less power.
Well, not in the days of leakage current dominating, because now it's not like that used to be true. But then once the leakage current became a thing, it kind of kept along, because what people would do is like, oh, I can't even make like a 22 nanometer chip until I solve this leakage current problem. So they would solve it by using like high K dielectric or whatever, things that they're doing. And then it would shrink, and you would get lower power, and it's like, yay, everything's following along. But really, the only reason you got less power is because they figured out the leakage thing. And so as we get smaller and smaller, it's like, oh, we got that problem again. We got all this leakage. What are we going to do? So you're right that in the old thinking, in like the 45 nanometer, 65 nanometer thinking, shrinking is better. But now, the sizes we're at now, shrinking is not necessarily better unless you know the intimate details of the geometry and materials of their actual transistors.
Right. So anyway, the gist is there's a couple of people, and again, the test size here is really small, but there's a couple of people who are getting results that indicate that the TSMC manufactured one, which is actually the larger feature size, but as John just explained, it doesn't really matter as much anymore. Basically, the TSMC manufactured A9s are yielding substantially better battery life than the Samsung ones. The test so far suggests that it might be as much as like 20-25% more battery life.
Well, do you know, let's put a qualifier on that, because here's my first question about these things. Are they yielding better battery life, or are they yielding better Geekbench battery scores? Because I'm not entirely convinced that there isn't something about the Geekbench battery test that behaves differently on one thing than the other. Like, like if this is our only metric, like you said, it's a small number of people. It's like, a few dozen people. And if they're all running the Geekbench battery test, I don't know what else you do to test battery life. Like, you need to have to do something. You can't just have anecdotal, like I used my phone for a day and it seemed like it was slower. But if they're all using the same test and it's a low number, I don't know yet. Like, I'm trying to think of like, what could it be about the Geekbench test that would care who manufactured the CPU? Are they different in ways other than the size of the features and the materials and geometry of the individual transistors? Are they different in, like, if we were to look at the layout of the chips, are they different in that way too? Maybe they are. And like, do they have different instructions? They have different cache sizes? We don't know anything about them. So there's too many questions here. But the most compelling thing I think we have is that thing that, who was it that tweeted this? John Poole tweeted graphs of the Geekbench scores for the different phones. And it's not labeled which ones have which CPU, but you can see 2 humps in the iPhone 6s one and 1 hump in the iPhone 6 one. Of course, the iPhone 6 one has a tremendous number of trials.
Right, it was something like 20 or 30 times as many.
Right, but still, with the small number of trials, it clearly shows 2 humps instead of 1. So in the coming days and weeks, we'll figure this out.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, and you can tell which one you have. There's an app called Lirum Info. We'll put it in the show notes. If you launch this, it's this. It's obviously made to dump a bunch of technical info. It shows the model number on the first screen, and for the 6S, it's N71AP. And then if you have the quote good one, it's N71MAP. There's a little lowercase m in the middle model number. That is the TSMC one, and that's the one that, if this is true, that's the one you want to have. That's the one I have. I'm very happy about that. I have not been using it long enough to really say whether I'm noticing extra battery life. It seems roughly the same to me, but I don't know. I haven't really been running it down a lot during this usage. I keep charging it during the day, so I don't know. Casey, did you check yours?
I did.
How'd you do?
I have the no bueno one.
Oh, the no M.
It's kind of like dead pixels. Maybe you should just not look. Like,
yeah.
Because basically you think like, am I dissatisfied with the battery life? If I'm not dissatisfied, then just don't look. But it's too late.
Yeah,
too late. You looked.
Whatever. Meh.
Right.
It seems to be fine. It doesn't seem particularly different than the last phone. As with every iPhone I've ever owned, I wish it did better. I wish I had a few more millimeters of battery somewhere in there, as we've talked about to death, but it's still how I feel.
But it's thinner.
But man, it's so thin and so bendy. Wait, what? So anyway, point being, I do have the quote-unquote bad one. I did not check Aaron's phone. I have no reason to believe that it would be any different other than, just complete luck. But again, I've not seen any difference in battery life from the 6 to the 6S, and so I'm not too worked up about it.
It is kind of unfortunate. I'm assuming that they probably just couldn't get enough to make them all the TSMC chip. I imagine that's probably a volume and yield issue. You can look at it either as your phone gets worse battery life than 40% of them out there, or you get a bonus if you have the other one. I don't know.
What I don't understand is, last I checked, I know these phones are doing a lot of background processing on various and sundry things. However, 99% of the time, these CPUs are sitting damn near idle, are they not? So what is it that's making that much of a difference? Like, good grief, that's a big difference. And it just seems weird to me.
Well, what's the big difference? Because I've seen the reports like, you get 2 hours different battery life. But where are they getting that number from? The only numbers I've seen are these ones with this benchmark. And the benchmark scores are like, 2,000 to 3,500. I don't know what those numbers mean. It's just an arbitrary number. They're not number of seconds or times.
No,
or hours.
there was a time test on, I think it was the Engadget post, republished it from wherever it originated. There was a time-based test, and it was like 7 hours versus 5 hours or something like that. And I assume it's some kind of like, it's probably some kind of like, max out the CPU to run it down as quickly as you can kind of test.
Yeah, I don't know how representative that is of what you're going to actually do with the phone.
Right, exactly. So, again, this is probably a non-story. We probably shouldn't have even talked about it for this long, but it's worth monitoring this story.
Well, it's, we know they're using 2 different parts, and there is precedent, as many people tweeted, for Apple using different parts from different manufacturers, and one of them being the good one, as Marco knows, for someone who didn't you originally have the MacBook Pro with the bad screen?
Yeah, I had I think it was the LG instead of the Samsung or one of those. Whatever panel you didn't want in the Retina MacBook Pro, that's the one I had.
But anyway, I think it will probably be fine as long as like Marco said, as long as the bad chip gets, and I'm sure Apple made sure of this, like as long as the bad chip fulfills the criteria that they put on the product page. Oh, you get about this number of hours doing this, about this number of hours, and they have, I'm sure there's some little tiny asterisk going to say, here's what we use to determine those numbers. And if there's some class action lawsuit about it, Apple's going to say, look, the bad phones get these numbers. The good ones get even better numbers. Congratulations, you're lucky. Like, I'm sure they're covering their bases by doing that.
Hope so.
All right. Let's see. Any other follow-up worth talking about? I don't think there is.
I did want to quickly mention this awesome artwork that we got today.
Yes, I completely forgot. Thank you.
This is fantastic. I'm going to attempt your name here. This is by Mendagas Rudakas, and it is awesome. So he illustrated this artwork called Business as Usual at ATP, and it's like a comic style, 3 frames, one of John, one of Casey, and one of me as we do the podcast, like from the back. And the level of like reference details in here, like, this is amazing. It's here, I'll put the link in chat here. There are so many little references and details that he got exactly right. Like, it shows, like, John's screen with a ton of windows, Casey with a giant glass of water next to his his MacBook Air. It shows me in my red office with all the fractures, including like the like half fallen off, half broken piece fracture, and
the pile of microphones with "sale" written on it.
Yep. I mean, and there's so many little details in each of these that are correct. It even got like our keyboard types. I mean, it's really quite something.
Yeah, it really is. I have a glass desk, which is exactly what I have. Although I am using what looks to be the Shure SM7B, which I haven't used in a while. And it looks to me as though you're using Xcode. Like, yeah, vaguely.
That's Xcode, yeah.
And it's just magnificent. Everything about this is wonderful. I saw this, and this was completely unsolicited. Like, or at least I didn't. I didn't think you guys had any idea this was coming. It just kind of showed up all of a sudden, and it is magnificent. So, like Marco said, we'll put this in the show notes,
and I asked him for a high res version that wasn't crushed by Twitter's terrible image compression, and he gladly volunteered it. Doesn't even want any money for it, and suggests that I can put it up and have, if anybody wants to get a fracture print of it, that I can. He designed it for the medium fracture size in mind, so I can put it up and people can order fracture. So I'm definitely getting one. Like, that, the reason I asked for it was before he even told me that. The reason I asked for it was definitely so that I could get a fracture print of it. And right as I was getting it from Tiff in our chat, she was upstairs and she was like, order this from Fracture right now. Like, I didn't even have to talk to her first. We both had the immediate thought, oh man, we're both getting, like, we have to get this and hang it in the office. So I offered to pay him for the high res version and to support his work, because this is awesome. And all he said was he won't take money if people want to support his work, which I definitely do. He has an app in the store called Disco Timer. And I downloaded it before the show. It's pretty good. It's like, it's a timer, and you just turn to set the time. It is so simple. It is completely over designed in the best possible way. Like, it's full of like animation and really strong visuals, and you can just go buy Disco Timer and unlock the in-app purchase. It's like $3. Just go unlock this, because this guy does awesome work, and so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. Yeah, it's a fantastic piece of art.
It's so good and so chock full of references. And every time I look at John's screen, I just laugh a little bit because it is so out of control. I love it.
Oh, yeah. There's tons of windows, and there's a toaster oven next to John. And even like the pile of microphones that is sitting next to me that says sale, those are the microphones I was selling. Like, they actually look like the level of, he got, my keyboard. I mean, the level of detail here is really quite something.
Yeah, I'm deeply impressed.
And almost all the details are correct.
John, anything to add on this, or are you pretty much happy with what we just discussed?
That's fine. Although there are lots of corrections I could add to it, but I don't want to. I don't want to put that into the head of the artist as if he's got to go back and fix all the mistakes, because they are there. Oh, but it'll just never end. So it's best to just go with what you've got, and instead of spending all your time fixing all the minor errors.
I love you, John.
So I think I'll ask him to make a few alterations to yours that make it even less accurate, and then I'll mail you a gift fracture with an even less accurate version of yours.
Oh, that would be phenomenal.
You don't even know all the corrections. I'll tell you in the after show or the after show.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh my goodness. All right, why don't you tell us about something else that's awesome?
Okay, we are sponsored this week by our friends at Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, or online store. For a free trial and 10% off, visit squarespace.com and enter offer code ATP at checkout. Now look, everybody, I'm a programmer. John and Casey are programmers. We all know how to make websites without Squarespace. So often, I have written my own stuff from scratch. And a few times, I've had the insight to choose to use Squarespace instead. And the times that I've chosen to use Squarespace, it just gets done. And it's done in so little time. The whole thing was done, as opposed to taking 2 weeks to have a kind of working version that I would have to host and support myself forever. Just give Squarespace a try. If it doesn't work for you, I bet you know someone who it does work for. And I bet you will have a project that lands in your lap sometime that you can just do on Squarespace in 2 hours and be totally done with it. Check it out. It is really, really great. It's simple and powerful to use. It's what you see is what you get editing. Plus, you can inject your own custom code if you're a programmer like me. Beautiful designs. They're all responsive. They look professional because they are professionally designed. You have commerce functionality. If you need to sell anything, you have commerce all built in. Physical or digital goods. All that is built in with no additional charge. They have 24/7 support, and all of this is built on state-of-the-art technology that is trusted by millions of people and some of the most respected brands in the world. Starts at only $8 a month. Check it out by starting a free trial today. And there is no credit card required. You can just start playing with it. Look at it, seriously. When next time you have to do something, next time you have to make a website, or if you have a website already that is, on something that's more work than you want to keep updated and to keep hosted, go start a Squarespace trial at squarespace.com and just try to replicate the site you already have, or try to create a new site for a new project you have. Give it an hour, and you can do a surprising amount, and then you're just done. And they host it, and they support it. If you're building it for somebody else, somebody else can just ask Squarespace when they have questions instead of asking you. It is so, so great for everybody, for regular people and for geeks like us who could make our own websites but probably shouldn't. So check it out, squarespace.com. Use offer code ATP to get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks a lot to Squarespace. Build it beautiful.
All right, so Microsoft has done something interesting, which every time I say that, I have a little bit of surprise in my voice, but I shouldn't, because they've been doing some interesting stuff for a while now. And they've come out with the Surface Book, which at first glance, having not really seen much about it, I was kind of like, okay. And then I looked into it a little bit earlier today, and it actually looks pretty good. I'm actually fairly impressed by it. One of the gripes I had about the Surfaces that have existed thus far is that it just seemed like a terrible compromise in every direction. It's kind of a meh tablet. It's kind of a meh laptop. And it just didn't seem, just physically, it didn't seem like it was a very good endpoint for this series of compromises. This, however, the Surface Book, looks like a much better designed laptop that can do more than just a laptop. And although I haven't had time to read into it a lot, I am very impressed by the little bit I've seen so far.
This is an example of, the only Apple stuff. This is an only Microsoft thing. Only Microsoft could have made this. And why? Because only Microsoft has an operating system that is the same one, the same in name and in concept anyway, that runs on their tablets and on their laptops. Apple couldn't make this, because then what would you do when you take off the tablet part? Would it switch to iOS? And then when you click it back together, it switch back to OS 10? That would be weird. So literally only Microsoft could make this, because they're the only one who has a software platform that works like that. So that's kudos to them for taking advantage of, I'm sure they consider it their strength, but surely, whether it's a strength or a weakness, it's surely a differentiator, because it is a seamless experience from having the thing connected and having it not connected, because it's not like you change OSs or anything. It's always the same OS.
Yeah, and what makes this different from a hardware point of view is that instead of being this like really chintzy looking kickstand, which I always thought was so ridiculous, it has, what do they call this? A snake hinge, a spider hinge, some sort of fancy hinge that had a animal analogy. Anyways, it has this weird hinge so you can You can fold it back on top of the keyboard, and then you can just pop the tablet-y part out and use it as a traditional tablet, which also looks pretty good, except for the fact that it appears, at least on the right side, if not both sides, it's got a humongous like grill for the fan, which is a little unfortunate. But by and large, it looks like it's a lot less chintzy than all the surfaces to date have been. I don't know, Marco, what do you think about this?
My concern with this, right now it looks really good. It looks amazing. Like hardware wise, this is like, I'd be really interested if Apple made something like this. Of course, we know they won't, but I'd be really interested if Apple made something like this, because I know that, it would. I am ultimately a laptop person, when it comes to mobile computing. I don't. With the iPad, it doesn't resonate with me the way it does with a lot of people. Like, I am really a laptop person with the kind of work I like to do and the way I like to do it. But I do occasionally, I am occasionally interested in stuff like, taking a screen somewhere, for some kind of like touch or pen input. I am very interested in pen type stuff to see like what I could do with that, even though in real life I'm not much of a pen person, and maybe that should just tell me right there I don't need it. But the hardware on this does look really interesting. Unfortunately, the software is still Windows, and I don't mean to be too harsh on Microsoft here, because it does kind of feel like kicking them while they're down. But Windows, the best that people can say about it these days, which is the best that people keep saying about their hardware, is what you opened up with, Casey, that it's interesting. And interesting is great. People have been saying that, when Windows Phone 8 came out, whatever that was officially called, when Windows 8 came out with the phone thing and the whole redesign and the artist formerly known as Metro interface style, people said the same thing. Oh, this is really interesting. People said the same thing about WebOS. That WebOS was really interesting. And, even before that, like, BOS was really interesting. Like, there's lots of things can get the tech press to say they're interesting, and to get geeks like us to look at them and say, oh, that's interesting. The problem is how often that translates or doesn't translate into actually buying and using these things. So many of the reviews of these interesting products in tech history have all been like, yeah, this would be really nice maybe for somebody who's not me. And that seems to always be the case. Like the Surface Book here, this would be really interesting for us if we weren't already using Macs for everything, and that it's like, yeah, okay, this would be really interesting if we loved the Windows world but didn't love the other PCs that have been keeping us there all this time. And I bet a lot of people are going to look at this and say it's interesting, but I bet very few of them are actually going to buy it, and that's been the problem Microsoft has had with a lot of their recent stuff.
Well, Mac users aren't going to buy it, right? But this is different than Windows Phone in that there is a built-in customer base for this, because Microsoft is shrewdly this time presenting it as a laptop. Hey, we made a laptop. Oh, and by the way, the screen comes off and you can kind of use it as a tablet. But yeah, I don't know if you know this, Marco, but I don't think you would want it, because the tablet part gets like a 4-hour battery life, because more than half the batteries, like 80% of the batteries is in the base or whatever. So it's
they split I guess that makes sense for weight reasons. You'd have to. That's crazy.
Yeah, they had to split the battery. But anyway, it's a 4-hour battery life on the tablet. But anyway, Microsoft are presenting this as, forget about the whole detaching thing. This is just a good Windows notebook. And Windows Notebook is not like a speculative product like the Surface was, where it's like, I don't know, maybe people want to use this thing with the kickstand and the pen. People buy Windows notebooks. That is a thing that people buy. This looks like a pretty good Windows notebook. Like, the performance is good, the design is pretty nice, the features they tout about it, like the keyboard looks like it's well designed. One of the features they touted has really good key travel on the keys. And again, how can they have good key travel on the keys? Because the computer is in the screen, and the only thing that's in the keyboard part is the batteries and a GPU and some other stuff. And that,
it also doesn't have the teardrop shape.
Yeah, the tech part is interesting because it's dual GPU. So in the base where the keyboard is, there's a bunch of battery, there's a keyboard, and there's a big GPU. And in the tablet part of it, there's a smaller GPU and some battery and the actual CPU and the memory and the rest of the guts of the computer. I would love to know what their interconnect is. Like, is it some proprietary PCI Express thing? Is it actually Thunderbolt over a custom connector? It's not a standard connector. They made up their own connector. And even that, they're doing interesting Apple-style things. Like, how do we connect the top to the bottom part with these little, like they call them like metal muscles, but it's like wires that remember their shape and reform to their shape if you apply current to them, using that to sort of pull tight these little clasps and stuff. And they have like a little, it's like your BMW, Marco, like when they disengage the little hooks to let you know it's disengaged, the speakers play a sound like a little snick. so you know when it is just again, ignoring the tablet part of it, it's a pretty neat Windows laptop. And so I think their positioning of this product as a Windows laptop first, and by the way, it has this pen and touch stuff second, is really smart. And I think it's not doomed like the Surface is to be like, well, it's interesting, but I don't really want them, because even though we're not going to get it because we want to run OS 10, right? People who are already buying Windows laptops, who are in the market for a small Windows laptop that they travel with or whatever, and they're looking at, well, should I get like a Dell laptop, or should I get a Lenovo laptop, or should I get this thing? This has a lot of appeal because it's nicer looking than most of the other Windows notebooks I see. It's interesting with the tablet angle, and you can always say like, well, if the tablet thing turns out not to be useful to me, it's still a nice laptop. So I think I feel good things about this product success in the market. The only question marks in my mind in terms of how they're going to do selling this as just a plain old laptop is like, how good is it Microsoft at manufacturing things anymore? Because they're making this themselves. They're not outsourcing, as far as I understand. And they have a lot of practice with the Surface and dealing with manufacturing things. And like, this is a skill set that Microsoft is developing. Apple has developed it. Apple's got it, right? And presumably Lenovo and Dell and all these other things have their own version of this expertise, right? But Microsoft is clearly aiming at we want the fit and finish of an Apple-type product, the design expertise of an Apple-type product, and I guess they're probably going to go for, we want to be as good a manufacturer as Apple too, but that's a long road. They're currently traveling that road. So it is an interesting product. I think it is a smart move. I mean, they did make the Surface 4. Like, they're still going in that Surface direction, but this is a smart move to say, this is a product that only Microsoft could make. It advances our goals on all fronts in terms of getting better at making products and having them well designed and stuff like that. And it will appeal to an actual customer base that is, every year buying a bunch of Windows. Now, Windows laptops is not a growth industry. Neither are Macs for that matter, although they're growing more than that. But hey, start small. Like as I think it was Satya Nadella said, what is it like? These are our colorful iMacs. I guess everything can't be their colorful iMacs, but they're recognizing that they're in the beginning stage of a resurgence.
Yeah, and I think this is the right way to do it. I think if they want to get more of like the Apple-like market or the Apple-like appeal of having this really nice hardware with good integration with the software, people have been saying that one of the problems they have with this is their relationship with OEMs and how this is going to change that and harm that possibly. And I don't think that's really a concern at this point, because I think, what is Dell going to do? Start putting Linux in those things? No, they're
going to copy this design. They have the same thing with all the servers. Like, that's what all the OEMs will do. They will make things that look and act just like this, which I think is also fine with Microsoft.
Yeah, but I think what we've seen over the last, decade, where Microsoft has been pushing various things here and there, and the OEMs have been trying to compete better with Apple. And I think what we keep seeing over and over again is that the Windows PC makers just aren't very good at really truly competing with Apple on hardware. For whatever reason, if they just can't do it right, or if they just can't take the margin hit by making better stuff, whatever the case may be, they aren't doing it. So if Microsoft can step in and attempt to do it, then more power to them. The biggest problem I think with this though is, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, but like, who will buy this and will it appeal to them? So right now, people who have wanted a premium quality, well thought out, highly integrated computer for the last decade or more have been buying Macs. Even PC people like me and Casey, who started out as PC people, many of us, especially like in the web developer community, so many of us moved to Macs over the last decade that. The question of who's going to switch back, I think is going to be a pretty small number, and all the remaining people who use PCs, which is still, I think it's still by far the dominant platform. The question is, will this appeal to those people? Relative to, if you look at why people who do buy PCs, who aren't buying Macs, why they still buy PCs, and a lot of that is for cheaper hardware, much more variety of the type of hardware that's available, different types of, more powerful stuff you can get for the money, or more powerful stuff you can get in different form factors. Like, people who buy PCs often want like really beefy gaming GPUs and laptops and stuff like that, or people who buy stuff for offices want stuff to be really cheap and easily managed and stuff. So will the people who are still buying PCs today want to buy this? And I know some of them will. But the question is, will enough buy it to really matter, to really kind of shift things around and start meaningful momentum behind this? And I don't know.
I think the answer is definitely yes. So my brother-in-law is deep into the Microsoft stack. He does the same sort of work I do, typically more around CMSs than I do, although I do a lot of that work. He sent me a text today telling me that he was getting the Surface Book. He was getting the new version of the Microsoft Band. And I didn't ask him if he's going to stick with his Windows Phone or not. But I'm pretty sure he's feeling the pain in that department. But he loves his existing Microsoft Band. He loves his existing Surface, and he is seriously amped up over the Surface Book. And I think the thing is that for PC users that are genuinely content being PC users, not ones with a philandering eye that are looking at Apple saying, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
But ones who are really into PCs, they're saying this is perfect. It is the no compromise machine that really is nothing but compromises. But it's the no compromise machine. It is a perfect tablet that can do anything. Not like your piece of crap iPad that can only do iPad things. It can do anything. And as soon as it becomes a tablet, I don't have to compromise and use a neutered operating system. Then, when I feel like typing, I have a perfectly good full-size keyboard. Not this hacky keyboard that kind of folds up on itself and folds around behind or in front or whatever. It's a full, honest-to-goodness keyboard. This is perfect for those kinds of people. I'm not saying I'm one of them. Can't imagine that this would be terribly great to use. And even though I've heard great things about Windows 10, I have no particular interest in getting into that. However, if you're in that mindset of, I want something with no compromises, I don't want Apple telling me what to do and how to do it. I want something that I can do whatever I want with in any form factor at any time with no compromises, again, actually built on compromises, then this is the thing for me. And it really is playing to their market, and I think it's doing it well. I mean, I admire what they're doing. I think they're playing to their market very well. It's just that that's not for me, and I think it's safe to say it's not for you guys either.
So can I now list everything that's wrong with this, now that we all said nice things about it?
Sure.
Yeah, so this is kind of shooting fish in a barrel. If you want to feel better about it, think about the first MacBook Air, which was also a mess as a product, and this is doing better than that. But anyway, let's start with the hinge that we just talked about. This if you haven't seen the pictures, you're like, what are they talking about with the hinge? A hinge is just a hinge, right? This hinge is weird because, well, the first thing you have to know about it is when it's in the closed position, the top half does not touch the bottom half completely, like it does on the Mac laptops. There's a big gap. Like you could drop coins. You could put the thing vertically and drop coins through it. It's like a big opening. You can see daylight through it. A very large opening. There is actually one advantage to this very large opening, which Andy Anatko pointed out, is that you don't get your finger schmutz from the keys onto the screen. That has happened with a lot of Mac laptops in the past, and I don't know if any of the current ones have the problem. You guys can tell me because I don't really use laptops.
The 15 does a little bit. It depends a lot on how you put it in your bag and what is pushing against it. If you don't have a lot of pressure that like pushes it more closed, if that makes sense, if you can avoid that kind of pressure in your bag with either how you put it in or how much other stuff you put in the bag with it, you generally won't get those marks.
Yeah, anyway, and that's a problem Apple can solve by, hey, guess what? Add a little extra clearance there. But anyway, that is the one advantage of that thing.
They killed the keyboard, John. The one place you need clearance.
I know,
they're like, we can cut. That's not important. We can cut that out.
Hey, I bet the MacBook One keys don't touch the screen because they're so repressed that they don't even poke up from the... Anyway, the disadvantage, of course, is that it makes the wide end wider. It makes it really wide. And that's not great for like you want. It depends on how you feel about like ever seen those things where they show like a picture of a bunch of pencils all lined up and one pencil is poking out and various other things that are slightly disordered. And if you're the type of person who likes like all your books lined up neatly on your bookshelf and all your things just so, looking at those pictures can give you discomfort. This laptop, I'm one of those people, by the way. This laptop gives me a little bit of discomfort of like, can't you just close it just close it all the way? Can't you just make it flat? Like, you just want to just stomp on that hinge. Anyway, but the practical consideration is that it makes the thing wider on the end, which isn't great because you do want a laptop to be thin. Because the screen part of it is basically the computer, and the bottom part of it, even though it has a GPU and a keyboard and a bunch of ports on it, is not the computer. The screen part is wider than you would expect on a laptop, because these days on the Mac laptops, the screen part is really thin. All it is a screen. It's really, really, really thin. This can't be really thin. That's where the whole CPU is. There's a fan in there. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. And as we know from other surfaces, when you do that, that makes that top part heavy. And if you're not careful, when you put it in a laptop shape, it can tip over because because you don't have it at exactly a right angle. You open up to a wider angle than that. And once you open up to a wider angle, if the top part is heavy and the keyboard part is light, it can just tip over. And of course, you don't want to do that. You want it to stay like a laptop, right? That's what this hinge is doing. They're so close. Like, basically what they did was they took the battery. Battery is their ballast, right? So we got the GPU here, we got the CPU in the screen there, we got the ports, but we haven't put battery anywhere yet. In that arrangement with no battery anywhere, the top is heavier because the top has more stuff in it. It is just the screen alone, the glass on the screen, like, it is just the heaviest part. And so, like, all right, this thing doesn't stand upright in this situation, but we haven't put any battery in it yet. We need to distribute the battery so it sits upright. And they don't want to take all the battery and shove it into the keyboard part, because then when you detach it as a tablet, you get 30 seconds of battery life. So they want as much as possible in the screen. So they're doing this balancing act where, like, put some battery in the bottom, put some battery in the top, and just doing this kind of balance, like, how can we get it so it doesn't tip over, but we have the most battery possible in the top part? And to get just a little bit of extra battery in the top part, to get it to not tip over, that's where the hinge comes in. Because when you open the hinge effectively makes the base wider. Like, it puts the heavy part farther away. You can, we'll have Dr. Drang do the force diagram for you, but basically the hinge lays down on the table, effectively making the base longer, so that the weight that's at the end of the base, that the part like where the trackpad is, which by the way is a glass trackpad and not a chintzy plastic one, that weight now can hold that end down better. Like, they're getting just a little bit of extra stability by making the hinge suddenly become part of, like, the three segments of the hinge become part of the bottom part of the hinge. And you're like, seriously, does that extra half an inch or a centimeter make a difference? That's what kind of hairline they're drawing in terms of, like, tippability, not tippability. I'm not saying it's like teetering on the brink. I'm saying they had some criteria for how tippable they want it to be, like where the center of gravity is or whatever. And those three little segments that lay on the table when you open it up, you give them a little bit of extra margin. Let them put a little bit of extra battery in the top part. That is, like as Casey said, is a hell of a compromise. Like, this hinge is not there for design reasons, it's not there for style reasons, and it's not there to keep your fingers from off the screen by putting a half-inch gap between the keycaps and the screen. It's there to try to work around the compromise they've had to deal with. And, the final compromise is that tablet gets 4 hours of battery life, and that is just no good. Like, if you want to use it as a tablet any substantial amount of time, don't get this one. Like, get the actual Surface Pro 4, like, because most of the battery in this thing is in the base part of it. And the final thing I would say is for Microsoft design and everything, I admire all the interesting things that they're doing. And that they're trying to gain these expertise, but they still seem, with their hardware designs, if not their software designs, trapped in the white room that Johnny Ive made. This is a silver metallic laptop. It's got a light-up logo on the back of it that's not shaped like an apple. It's shaped like the little silly Windows logo, which is not a great logo. Like, squint, and it looks like every other laptop, and every other laptop looks like Apple laptops. I know it's magnesium and not aluminum, but, like, the aesthetic, the overall sort of, the keys look like Apple's keys, but they're, magnesium instead, and they're not dome switches. But, like, Apple so dominates hardware design visually that every single other computer, including Microsoft's super innovative ones, they just live in the shadow of everything that Apple's design team has done. And I feel like eventually they're going to have to go their own way and get out of that shadow. Like, it's the thing that Johnny Ive said a million times. Like, we want to make a design that after we do it, everyone thinks it's inevitable, and it's the blessing and the curse. Because, like, people are like, well, of course that's what a laptop has to be shaped like, because that's what they're shaped like. No, that's just the way Johnny Ive made them. Like, don't accept his. It's not actually inevitable. It's great design that makes you think it's inevitable, but it's like everyone else is like, well, this is what laptops look like. We have no choice but to make our laptop, down to making a glass trackpad, for crying out loud. Like, they use the materials, the colors, the appearance, just. Again, Microsoft getting out of the material, saying, we're going to use magnesium. It's better than aluminum, and we're going to deal with all the manufacturing. It's like, fine, good, but, like, you still end up making a silver laptop with your glowing logo on the back of it. So that's it for someone who has never actually touched one of these things, just looking at the pictures of what I think is wrong with this.
It gets up to 12 hours of video playback, John.
When it's connected to the giant battery in the keyboard.
I found a typo on their website.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the link here I pasted in the show notes on their main page under tech specs. You scroll down past the picture of the two laptops, choose the power you need, and it says Intel Core i5 with Intel HG graphics. It's supposed to be HD graphics. Intel HG graphics don't exist. Hopefully they put more attention to detail into the actual manufacturing of the product.
The OS integration is, again, it's great that Microsoft, not that only Microsoft could do this, because Apple can do it as well, but it's a typical Apple move. Like, hey, we're going to make this weird thing with 2 GPUs. Is that going to be supported well in Windows? Yeah, because we write Windows, so we'll make sure that, it's kind of like when Apple did the GPU switching, where we have discrete and integrated in the same laptop, and we'll smartly switch between them. And Apple kind of screwed that up. Hopefully Microsoft did a better job, because they basically have the same thing. They have the big, faster GPU in the keyboard part, and the lower power, not as fast GPU in the tablet part. And I'm assuming it does some either, if not smart switching between them, then just 2 modes, like one all discrete and one all integrated.
Going back a sec to what you said about the Johnny Ive trap of design here, honestly, and bringing this back to Apple a little bit, I would love to see more variety. I think it seems like Apple's computer design is really kind of stuck in a rut, and I don't know, I don't. Maybe Johnny Ive has just reached the limit of what he cares to do on computer designs.
It's not him, it's his team. But anyway, the Mac Pro was a breath of fresh air, or not so fresh air, but you can't say it looked like an aluminum machined rounded corner rectangle.
That's true. Yeah, the Mac Pro I think looks great. I don't know. But we all know that they really mostly just sell laptops these days, and I am a little bit, I don't know, maybe I'm just bored because I've been using laptops that look basically the same for the last 10 years that I've been buying Macs. So I don't know. I would love to see a little more variety in what Apple offers.
Well, they are doing colors now, right?
The colors are barely different from each other.
I get what you're saying, though. They are very, we are in a rut. We are in a design rut for this, and there is room to do more interesting things. But here's what I think the problem that Apple faces with this design. I think we talked about this in past shows for laptops. One, laptops are constrained by being laptops to some degree. You can make the Mac Pro a weird tube because whatever, you don't carry it around. Laptops, for the most part, have to be a thing that is small and light and that is reasonably portable, which probably means it has to fold flat into some kind of shape that's not too big to fit in a bag. Those constraints really, the screen's not going to be circular. There's only so much you can do. And within the constraints, and the Apple design has been we just need to refine it down to its essence and blah, blah, blah. And they've been doing that. And they eventually settled on material, which is big giant blocks of aluminum that they carve out that's strong and light and attractive and durable and all that stuff, which is just so much better than everything else they tried, which included plastic and titanium and aluminum that wasn't carved out of a single giant block. The aluminum unibody is a great design for a laptop. And so the problem they're faced with is either we can continue to do aesthetic things with the single block of aluminum, which I think there's room for that. You could make a Darth Vader black one and charge $150 extra for it in the tradition of the old black book, and that would be great. Or you can make one that has a mirror finish or something. I don't, there are things you can do within the metal, but that's mostly just, surface design. To go to the next stage of design, you have to change materials. And I'm sure in a lab somewhere, Apple is constantly evaluating, is aluminum really the best material to make a laptop out of? Is there anything else? Can we do carbon fiber? Can we revisit titanium? What about magnesium? Microsoft's doing that. New materials could mean something new for them, and especially if they say, well, now we're into the era where things are going to be flexible instead of rigid, or we have floppy OLED screens that roll out on little stilts, or I don't know. But for the foreseeable future, I think machined aluminum is the best choice, and then their aesthetic choices within that are constrained both by being a laptop and by there's only so much you can do with it. But in the end, their timid tinting of the aluminum is still pretty wimpy. A jet black one alone would be exciting enough that maybe you would be oh, that looks cool. I'll be interested to not have yet another million silver laptops in my house.
Right. I mean, look at what they were able to do with the iPod Touch colors. They look great, and the iPods from forever ago, the iPod Nano, the iPod Touch. Those have these bold, bright colors that change every few years, and that would be really interesting on laptops, on the phones. But they're so much more conservative, and I'm sure there's good reason for that with design, marketing, fashion, whatever. But I admit I'm really kind of bored with their designs, and maybe that's obviously a really like stupid thing to whine about, but I would like to see them just try a little bit more variety there.
Well, you got to be careful what you ask for, though, because the thing that just flashed into my mind was like a MacBook One, which is not actually called the MacBook One, new listeners, so it's just what we call it, the really skinny one with the bad keyboard. But like, what do you where it's still silver, or maybe it's black, or maybe it's like tinted gray, or whatever. Like it's still aluminum. The only thing you have to mess with color-wise there is the keyboard. Why not make the keyboard Dalmatian?
Oh, no.
Why not make the keyboard flower power?
Oh, God.
Like, these are things that have happened. Like, why did the Dalmatian and flower power exist? Because at a certain point, you're like, the iMac is defined by a CRT. We've got a slot-loading drive. We've done a bunch of tweaks to the design. You know what? We've got this big giant canvas. Let's do something with it. They don't have much of a canvas in the other ones. Like, I guess they could make the back of the screen have weird... You see all this aftermarket stuff where they like laser etch your laptop with like flowers or whatever. There's only so much room for things until for innovation in this space. If you stick to aluminum, unless you start saying, all right, it's time to wallpaper things. Time to just like, there's a bunch of surfaces that I treat as billboards, and I'm just going to put a bunch of stuff on them. And I don't think the flower power and Dalmatian iMacs, which are real things, young people, that actually happened, I don't think they sold very well. But that's sort of the logical conclusion of, we are in a design rut, and we can't think of anything else. We've done colors, we've done shapes. We're stuck with this until we can come up with the flat panel iMac, in which case they started innovating again in the design. At the very end of that life cycle, they said, all right, patterns, whatever.
Our second sponsor this week is MailRoute. Go to mailroute.net/ATP. Now, MailRoute, I use MailRoute. So you have an email host somewhere. Suppose you don't want to use, Gmail or the big webmails for lots of good reasons. Like, I don't want to use them. So I own my email address. I don't have to worry about Gmail and its, weird privacy stuff. All that is just not a concern of mine. And I get to use regular mail apps on any platform and not have to worry about weird IMAP bugs. So it's great. But the one problem that most of these hosts have is that it's very hard for most web hosts or for most email hosts to match the spam filtering quality of Gmail. Gmail spam filtering is really good by most accounts, and so to match spam filtering there, it's very hard. The old approaches of just running spam bays or mail assassin, that kind of stuff, that is not enough these days. You need something more advanced than that. MailRoute is that more advanced service. So here's what you do. You point your DNS for your MX records, your mail records, you point your DNS to MailRoute, and then MailRoute filters out all the spam and delivers the mail to your real mail server. So they basically just shield you from all that crap at the service level. So you can use any app you want, doesn't matter. You can use any IMAP provider you want, any email host you want. If you run your own email servers, this is especially interesting for you because this can dramatically reduce the load on them. You can save money on just having fewer servers, and you can just not deal with it. And and if you're like me and you have just an individual account somewhere that you pay for, you get the best spam filtering I've ever seen with MailRoute. It is really incredibly good. I really cannot overstate this. And by most accounts, from people who have used both, they actually say it's better than Gmail spam filtering. So you can get the best spam filtering I've ever seen, better than Gmail, on any mail host you want. Whether it's something like Fastmail, where you're paying for it, or whether you're running your own servers, you get the world-class spam filtering right from MailRoute. It is amazing. And of course, viruses, malware, they cover all that too. But for me, the important part is spam, and they nail it. I've never seen one this good. So anyway, you can check it out yourself today. Go to mailroute.net/ATP for a free trial and 10% off for the lifetime of your account. That's really interesting. Not just once up front, 10% off for the lifetime of your account if you use our link, mailroute.net/ATP. Say goodbye to spam forever. Thanks a lot to MailRoute.
All right. Question for you guys. Do we really care that Jack Dorsey's back at Twitter? Because I do not care.
I couldn't possibly care less.
I like, a lot of our friends are like really excited about this, and I don't care. Why should I care?
I mean, I care about Twitter, but the Twitter leadership over the years has been such a revolving door that's just like, I don't know. It seems like they have a lot of issues up there that are way above most of our heads, and it doesn't really. I don't know. I think Twitter is a really, really useful thing, a really important thing in the world right now, and I hope they don't screw it up. But I have no idea whether this is a step in the right direction or not. I have no clue.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I care about Twitter's leadership. I care about the direction of Twitter as a Twitter user, but I don't know enough about Jack Dorsey or the history behind the leadership or what's really going on behind the scenes to know whether this is a good or a bad thing, or it's just, wait 5 minutes and someone else will be in charge, so it doesn't matter. So I really hope this is a good thing. A lot of people seem to think it is, but I have no particular information or faith that this is going to make things better than they have been.
I mean, I will say that it did seem like they were going in a bad direction. And so, a change is probably for the best. But, the reason they were going in a bad direction was probably not because of who the CEO was. It's probably because of all the pressures they're facing. They face so much pressure. Now they're a public company, and they're really not hitting their growth or usage goals. They're under so much pressure from everybody, from the investors, from the public, from the press, almost certainly from the board as a result of all those things. They are under so much pressure to juice their numbers and really, get the growth and get the usage up, because they're not keeping up with where they wanted to be, and their stock price isn't doing that well as a result, and blah, blah, blah. And so it has a lot less to do, I think, with somebody sitting in a conference room saying, this is what I feel is best for the product. I think it's like dealing with that giant pile of crap that whoever is in charge of Twitter has to deal with now as a result of these market pressures and them really not hitting their numbers recently. And that, anybody in that position is going to have a big challenge. It does seem like people are confident in Jack, and he does seem to have a lot of political capital there. So maybe this is promising, who knows? But it's not a simple problem, and it's not, the things they change might not be, all great and lucky for us. I mean, Dick Costolo was doing a pretty good job on a lot of fronts. He wasn't doing great on everything, but he was doing pretty well on a lot of things, and a lot of those things were things we didn't like some of the monetization and ad stuff. But he was doing fairly well on that kind of stuff, as far as I know. So, I don't think if Twitter starts making changes for to keep themselves afloat, to keep their numbers going up, to keep their product going where it should be going. Most of that sounds to me like they need to do things we don't like. Like, they need to inject ads into the stream for third-party clients. They need to actually really not boost third-party clients, because they need to take control of their own product. And this is all stuff that I don't like, but it's probably going to happen.
The control of their own product, A, they've kind of had it for a while, and B, it's clear they don't know what to do with that control. It's like, now we control the product, and what we're going to do with it is let most of our clients rot to crap, and then we don't know what we're going to do with the few clients we do pay attention to. And so it's like, well, you got the control, but the second part of having the control is doing something with that control. And so far, they've just been floundering. And that's why people are optimistic. Like, oh, Jack Dorsey, you'll maybe understand that developers are important. I'm not saying that's a good strategy, but at least that's a strategy where something would happen. I think the problem has been there hasn't been a clear, the direction was okay, so much for third parties, we're going to take control. But they didn't take that and take the ball and run with it. All right, we've got control, now let's go boldly off into this direction, which may have been the wrong direction, but at least you can say, well, this is the thing they did. They took control from third party developers, and they ran as fast as they could in this direction, and guess what? There was a brick wall. Oh well. But at least they tried something. The only thing that we know would have some effect is, well, you could run back in the other direction where it used to be oh, third parties are welcome, and everybody who wants to have an API key will, maybe we'll have some revenue sharing arrangement where if you sell a Twitter client and you use our API, you have to give us a percentage of the money or some deal like that. But that's not going to make them rich. That's not going to move the needle on their stock price. We know it would work. Developers would love to do it. Third party clients would flourish. They would make some money off of it, but it would be peanuts compared to what they have to make to be the company that everyone thinks they're supposed to be. The only good thing you could say about Twitter at this point is no matter who's in charge, eventually, as these CEOs rotate, as bad as things get, as long as Twitter continues to be like it is now, somebody can always sell it. Because there's plenty of people who will buy Twitter right now, today, if the price is right, including probably Apple. Because Twitter is still a thing. It is popular. Hashtags are everywhere. You see them on TV. It has gotten into the culture to the degree that, worst case scenario, the very, very worst is the last CEO out the door sells the company to one of the million eager buyers. Maybe not for what they could have got at the peak of their fame, but surely enough to give that CEO a golden parachute and to say, well, we made some money for our investors and it's fine, and we couldn't figure out what to do with the company. let it be absorbed into another company that has some other way to make tons of money, and we're just like a little nice to have value add.
Yeah, we'll see. I've been trying to get excited about this, and I just don't care. Have you guys seen the new Moment thing?
I don't even know what anyone's talking about with that.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah, I like the fact that like that's the Twitter that we don't use. Like the Twitter of people who use the official client. It's like it's everybody who's not a tech nerd and Cable Sasser, I think, are the people who use the official Twitter client.
And Vitici, I think.
Maybe.
I think even he finally went back. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I still launch the official. I have the official client installed, and I still launch it every once in a while. Mostly because I don't know if this is irrational, but I don't. When people send me Twitter DMs, all of the third-party clients, I feel nervous about whether I'm correctly using them to send DMs, and the official Twitter client has a more reassuring interface for DMs, I've found. Even Tweetbot 4, which I just installed tonight, I was going to do some DMs over there, and I hit like the plus button and typed in someone's name, and it didn't come up in the search. I'm like, well, I know this person follows me, but I don't follow them, and it's not coming up, and I don't know how to send this person a message, and I'm always afraid to do D space, the old ways. Mm-hmm. The old ways may be the best ways, but at this point, I'm so nervous that some Twitter client is not going to honor the D space, whatever name, and I'm going to publicly tweet something that I'm trying to DM. So anyway, all this to say is that I do launch the official Twitter client on a, maybe once a month or so, and just, I can't make heads or tails of it in there. I don't know what's going on. I just want to get the hell out of there and back to any other client as fast as I can.
Just for what it's worth, John, if you ever need a DM guinea pig, I'm happy to be that guy. I'm here for you.
No, that's the problem. Like, it'll work on you, and then like I'll accidentally put an extra space in or use a capital D because I didn't notice that the shift key was auto down, and I just feel I want a more reassuring GUI interface. It's like, you're in the DM zone now, and first you're going to pick the person you're DMing by tapping on them, like not typing their name, and the next is, okay, this is a DM to this person. The UI clearly states that you're in a DM to this person. Type your DM here, and the only thing you can do from that screen is type a DM, right? I'm really nervous about just a generic field, even though I used to do it back in the old days. Especially now that DM length limits are up and people are using it more like I am, I just want to get the hell off Twitter DM as fast as possible because I'm so afraid that I'm going to accidentally start, put something in public that shouldn't be. It's bad enough with like iMessages with everything in one window. I'm constantly sending people the wrong message because I didn't notice which thing is selected in the sidebar because it's a single window interface.
You need your windows.
I know. ADM remembers the size and position of the windows for each individual person. I'm way less likely to do wrong window in ADM than I am in the admin messages. And historically, like I just did it the other day. I'm pretty much average every other month I send someone the wrong message in iMessage. And ADM, I think I maybe done it once in 3 years.
Wow. I can't believe you still use ADM.
Well, I mean, I can't with all you iMessage people.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I signed out of my AIM name, I think a couple of years ago, and I just removed it from iChat and just like, I'm done.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone I converse with in a way that I would previously have described as instant messaging, it's all iMessage or very rarely just text messages that I'm typing on my Mac.
Our final sponsor this week is Fracture. Go to fractureme.com and use code ATP15 for 15% off your first order. These are beautiful pictures printed in vivid color directly on glass. And let me tell you, people, I have so many fractures around my office, as noted by our friend in the artwork that I'll link to during this. It is so good. If you want this on a fracture, go get it and use code ATP15 for 15% off. It's so good. I'm going to do that. So Fracture photos, first of all, these are great. It's photos printed on glass, and it's not heavy. It is a very thin piece of glass adhered to a piece of like foam core that you can like hang it from the foam core. It is nice and light, so you don't have to worry about tearing a giant hole out of your wall or anything like that, or dropping it, or things like that. It's very nice and convenient, very easy, and it just looks fantastic. The photo is printed edge to edge on this piece of glass, and so it just looks clean and modern. You don't frame them, like they are framed basically. They don't need their own extra framing, so you save money, you save hassle, and it just looks super clean and modern. Really great look. I always get compliments on these when people come over and they see them in my office. It's really I can't explain well enough how good they are, but trust me, you want these. They also make great gifts. Now, Fracture's been telling all their podcast hosts this week they will really want to, first of all, send a ginormous thank you. They actually use the word ginormous here in the script, so I'm going to say it. I'm not sure I've ever said ginormous before tonight, but they really wanted to send a ginormous thank you to everybody who has been ordering Fractures through their various podcast ads. They are very thankful, and we are thankful for having them as sponsors. Now, here's the thing with Fracture. All these are handmade and hand-printed in their factory in Florida and by human beings. And so what happens is, during the holidays, they often get backlogged. And so if you want to get Fractures made as gifts, which I highly recommend, I'll be doing this myself. I already did a couple. I'm going to do a couple more. If you want Fractures as gifts, which they're great at, get a nice picture, get it off your phone, get it off Instagram, put it on glass, send it to your family, send it to your friends, whatever the case may be. If you want to do that, get your orders in now, because when the holiday season's approaching, oftentimes they get overrun and they get back ordered, and then it can't make it in time. Like if you try to place an order in like late November, you might not get it in time for Christmas or New Year's or whatever holiday you're buying photos for. Place that order now. Get in front of the line. I highly recommend doing this as gifts. Again, they make wonderful gifts. The prints look awesome. Get them for yourself, get them for your family, whatever the case may be. Get Fractures. Go to fractureme.com. It's a great service with great prints. Fractureme.com. Use coupon code ATP15 for 15% off your first order. Thanks a lot to Fracture for sponsoring our show again. Excellent.
So Tweetbot 4 came out, finally, and it's really good. I'm really liking it. And, I was talking about this recently on another show, and I have nothing against Twitterific. I love Craig Hockenberry to death, and I like Twitterific, but it doesn't operate the way my brain operates, and that doesn't make it wrong by any stretch. And clearly, John, it operates the way your brain operates. But
is it just the unified timeline?
No, the unified timeline doesn't bother me, but the way Tweetbot has the tab. Well, I'm thinking specifically about the phone, and I used Twitterific more on the iPad, and I don't have my iPad within arm's reach. But looking at replies, I know there was a tab for that. Gosh, it's a very valid question that I can't remember off the top of my head what would bother me about it. But anytime I went to like drill deeper into a conversation, for example, something about it was always backwards from what I expected. It's just things didn't work the way I expected them to. Whereas in Tweetbot, everything worked the way I expected it to. I'll have to take it as homework to come up with some specifics for next week.
Was it like the swipe directions and stuff? Because like sometimes swipe directions are like muscle memory. Like if you ask me, I don't even know what the swipe directions are to show the conversation or replies and stuff in Twitterific. My fingers just do them. It's kind of like Emacs key combos. I've realized now with new people at work who I try to tell Emacs key things to, that I don't know what the keys are. My hands know, but I don't know. And I try to explain it and I say the wrong thing, and they try it, and like I tried that and nothing happened. I'm like, I guess that's not it. And I said, I have to put my hands on the keyboard and just do this. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Control XB, but it's not Control anyway. Like,
in all fairness, nobody knows what Emacs command keys
some
are.
people know them, but muscle memory. With iOS apps with gestures, I find this true a lot of the case where you can just get used to like. And it's weird to say, like, is it swipe to the left? It depends on how you conceptualize it. Like, am I revealing more information from the right, or am I moving the virtual tile to the left? I know Tweetbot has like the controls on the bottom, and Twitterific like doesn't reveal an extra set of controls on the bottom. And anyway, I can see how the gestures might be different, but I think that's like a surmountable, like the muscle memory is a surmountable thing. But anyway, Tweetbot's fine. I've got it installed. Twitterific's fine. I got it installed. Unified timeline is my big feature. But other than that, I feel like it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
And that's probably true. And the thing of it is that just for me, it's gestures. It's some of the ways things are displayed. I'm actually opening it on my phone, even though I don't typically use, or I never use Twitterific on my phone. Just some of the stuff was just kind of backwards and weird to me. When I swipe to see a conversation, the thing, although Tweetbot is now doing this, which kind of drives me crazy, but the tweet that I was looking into the conversation for, so kind of the subject of that gesture, is all the way at the bottom, which drives me crazy. And now Tweetbot's doing that, which drives me insane. That always kind of annoyed me. Let's see. Replying was always basically okay. I don't know. I'll have to play around with it again and see what it was that bothered me. But maybe it just does come down to gestures just being backwards from what I'm expecting. In any case, Tweetbot is out. It includes the iPad app. I love it. I think it's great. I like the new activity tab. I'm a little sad that a while ago now, the retweets tab kind of died in a fire, which I used to like looking at.
Yeah, I missed that too. I campaigned during the beta, but the activity screen went out.
Yeah, I did the same, and I was told in no uncertain terms it's not happening. But I do like the activity screen. I think it's kind of cool. Definitely not something I should be looking at, because the last thing I need to do is be looking at Twitter more and trying to engage with my brand more. But nevertheless, I do like it. I think it's cool. But there was a lot of anger, as with every time that the Tapbots guys release a new version that costs money. People are really upset about paying $5 for an app that, if they're anything like me, they use for hours every single day. And geez, just when are we going to get off this treadmill?
Well, I wonder, like, how much of it is just people who can be safely ignored? Because the reality is they still hit #1 paid app on the chart. I don't know where they are now, but they hit that on their launch day. So, it's selling well. You're always going to have, when you have that many people, you're going to have a lot of people who complain. And it's always just a percentage of the user base who's going to be angry no matter what. The question is, are there more than what could be expected for that number of people? And honestly, I don't think there are. I mean, I don't see their support email, and I don't read all their tweets, so I don't know. But from just what I've heard here and there, what I've seen, I looked at their App Store reviews, and it doesn't seem like it's any worse than what you'd expect from any app that had that many people using it. So yeah, they charge for an upgrade. Who cares? The people who care are people who, I think we'd all be better off just ignoring those people, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I love the new app. I think it's great. I've always loved Tweetbot. I will probably forever love Tweetbot. Marco, I assume you're into it as well. You're digging it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it for a while, and I really like it.
John, is it just not even worth you looking? I mean, I know you said you installed it, but not even worth you taking seriously because no unified timeline?
Yeah, it's my backup Twitter client. Like, if something is wonky, or if I want to make sure this is the client issue, or if I want to, use like the activity view, I don't think I would ever use that. But if that's an example of a feature that Twitterific doesn't have, and if I wanted something like that, I would go there. So it's like Twitterific is what I use every day, all day. Tweetbot, if I feel like I want to try something in a different client, and then finally falling all the way back to the official client if there's something that is only supported in the official client, or I want to see what it's like in the official client or whatever. So I've always got Tweetbot installed, but it's on like another page of icons. It's not in a folder. It's out of a folder. The official Twitter one is in a folder. But yeah, I keep it around, and I always buy it and upgrade it. Maybe it's I'm wasting my money on it, buying an app that I'm going to launch like 5 times before the next upgrade. But I like seeing what's happening in the Twitter client space. I spend a lot of time in Twitter.
Yep, same here.
Yeah, I mean, this is my most used app on the iPhone, no question. And on the Mac, it's up there. On the Mac, maybe Mail and Safari beat it, but otherwise, it's my most used app, which is really sad. But the fact is, that's like as you mentioned, it's part of so many of our like professional and social lives. It's all intertwined in there, and it's very hard to get out of that. So I don't know. I think Twitter, Twitter is here to stay for a while for a lot of us. And if you're going to be using Twitter, one of these apps that's not the official Twitter app is usually the right move. And Tweetbot is the one that fits me best. As you mentioned, I've tried Twitterific. I can see why people like it, but it doesn't fit me as well. Yep, I completely agree. So yeah, it's this is a great update, and I'm happy with it. All right. Thanks a lot to our 3 sponsors this week, Squarespace, MailRoute, and Fracture, and we will see you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Twitter, you can follow them at CASEYLISS. So that's Casey Liss, MARCO. A-R-M-E-N-T, Marco Arment, S-I-R-A-C, USA, Syracuse, it's accidental. They didn't mean to, accidental. Tech podcast so long.
You bought your Tesla yet?
Yeah, I bought it with all the peace money and then had to return it.
Oh, that sucks. Man, tough luck.
I keep seeing a red one in town. Somebody in town has the red P85D, and it looks really good. So I think I'm going to go red if I do it. I still, before I make a final decision, I still do want to do one more test drive, and I would like to test drive the non-P version, just the 85 or 90D, because that's the one I would probably want to get. I don't think I want to go all the way to the P, just because even though I did love driving it, it's like $20,000 more, mostly for this insane mode that I actually found too fast and slightly unpleasant to use.
You have to try the ludicrous mode, though. Maybe that wraps around. It's like shooting the moon, right? It wraps around and it becomes sublime, right? There was the 95D has ludicrous mode.
No, 90 only, but yeah, it only goes to 90 right now. But
wait, what is the 90D? It's not even shown on the website.
It's just a range boost on the 85. You pay like an extra $3,000, and you get it's just a bigger battery.
But that's the one with ludicrous mode, right? Which is a step up from insane mode.
Yeah, you can get any of them in that capacity, but ludicrous mode requires it. But it doesn't. I mean, I'm definitely not doing ludicrous mode. That's
you have to try it at least once. Like I said, it could wrap around. You don't know.
Yeah.
So wait. So I'm sorry. You said which one do you think you want?
The one I probably would get would be the 90D. So it is the one that is roughly as fast as the M5, and it is the longest range you can get in their lineup. All the things about the P version, like it basically gets you like red brake calipers, which look cool, but I don't need them, and the option for a carbon fiber spoiler, which I think actually looks bad. So I don't really need it. And for that, like I wouldn't feel good spending that much extra money on it if the 85/90D is almost as good. I also the fact is my car right now is faster than what I usually can use with it. I live in a neighborhood. I drive around residential streets most of the time. I can't and really shouldn't have a faster car than what I have now. I don't even need a car that's as fast as the one I have now. And I'm also, as I mentioned once before, I'm kind of over having a loud car. I never liked my cars to be loud. I've been getting cars that are loud because I like the way they drive, and I like they're fast and sporty. But I always feel self-conscious with driving a very loud car on a residential street. And it seems like the loudness of the M cars is completely artificial. Like not even just with the radio in the car, but even the outside noise. Like you can put any muffler on there that sounds like anything you want, and the only reason they make them loud is because a lot of people want that, and it sounds fast. And so a lot of people who are buying fast cars,
so good,
right? A lot of people who are buying fast cars want they demand that it be loud. Like that's. But like to me, that it feels so. Just like pandering. It feels so artificial. It almost feels insulting to my intelligence that like they take this car and they just make it louder because they think I will require that. I don't know. That doesn't feel great to me. And as I'm getting older, and I have my kid now, and I'm around a lot of other people with kids, and there's kids all over the block, and I'm driving this loud car down the street. Like I get a little self-conscious about it. So I'm over having a loud car. And if you look at BMW's lineup, the only way to get a transmission that I would tolerate is either to have a loud M car, which, by the way, still there's no all-wheel drive version unless you count the X5/6Ms, which shouldn't exist. So if you count only the real M cars, there is still, and I know, please, everyone, I know that the next M5 generation is very likely to have all-wheel drive, but that's still a couple of years out, and it would still be very loud. So, I think I'm out of the BMW line unless I'm willing to go down back to the 3 Series and get basically Casey's car, which is a great car. The one you have is a great car, the 335 E92, E90 series, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great car. However, I do like the size and the extra luxuries of the 5 Series. I would miss a lot of that. And also, that car's not incredibly quiet either, but obviously it's not as loud as the M cars. But also, I don't like the F30. I really don't. Like Tiff's is decent. It's a very good all arounder. But there's like certain things about it I don't like, and I think the regular sedan version of it, I think it feels cheaper than the E90 series, and it doesn't feel as good. I'm not crazy about it. CMF in the chat pointing out the 550, the 550X would be the one I would want because I like all-wheel drive. The 550, the problem with that is it is not available in a transmission that I would tolerate. It is only auto, and Tiff's car has like the sportiest auto BMW currently sells. Although I haven't tried. I think the new 7 Series has a slightly sportier one, but it's like 9 gears now or something. It's crazy. So like the sportiest one that is available that is still an automatic, I drive that one all the time in Tiff's car, and I drive it in automatic mode because manually shifting it sucks. Like it is no substitute for either a DCT or a real stick. It is no substitute. So I would require either a DCT or a real stick or no gears whatsoever, which is what the electric cars give me. A typical automatic transmission is just not an option for me.
And by the way, on the noise front, if Eddie Q or any other members of the Ferrari board are listening, disregard Marco. I still want to hear the sound of a flat plane crank V8 in my Ferrari when I'm actually hitting. And it's not just the volume. It's like you're saying, like, you don't like it because it's loud. People do like it to be loud, but it's also like the sound that it makes. Like I don't think anybody wants the Viper V10 to be loud because it sounds weird, because V10s sound weird. But a Ferrari V8 does not sound weird. It sounds like beautiful music. And so that's what people want. Not just the sound, but a specific sound, whether it's a burbling V8 of like a Mustang or something, which is kind of what your car has, which is kind of weird and unseemly that it has the burble, or the screaming wail of the flat plane V8. So and true. That's what we Italians want.
No, like I like the sound my car makes. I really do like it when I want that kind of thing, but that is almost none of the time that I'm driving it. And I don't like the sound of the new M3. I think the new M3 sounds terrible. I've now heard them in person a few times, and I think they really cranked up the sound of that V6, trying to get it to sound really impressive like the old V8 did, and it just doesn't. It is. I think it sounds. The new M3, I think, sounds like a cheap car that somebody put a cheap aftermarket pipe on to sound faster.
Yeah, that's the problem all the cars have, including even Ferrari, because they added the turbos to the 488 or whatever the new one is. That that tends to muffle some of the sound, and that sound that you want is not. And Ferrari has struggled mightily to try to get that sound back. I wonder if, like, by the time we're old and gray and grandparents, that Ferrari will be selling like a throwback model where it's like a normally aspirated V8 with the old geometries and everything, just because by then everything will be like electric or hybrid, and it'll be impossible to get that sound because it'll all be like tiny small displacement turbo engines like they kind of are now in every other car.
Yeah.
And it's like it'll will they start sounding like retro models, like this is not a modern car, but this is like it's like a scale model, or not a scale model, like a reproduction. So it's got some modern things in it, but the powertrain is a complete throwback. I don't know if it'll even be illegal to sell those in the United States at that point, but
you could even have like this weird transmission where you need 3 legs in order to operate.
Yeah, like a big silver ball on a big silver
Wouldn't that be
stick.
weird?
Yeah.
God, that'd be crazy. To go back to the Tesla, I freaking love that the Tesla or the Model S page on the Tesla website outlining battery performance and drive options. All I see on this page is 5.5 seconds, 5.4 seconds, 5.2 seconds, 4.2 seconds, 3.1 seconds, or if you'd like to pony up for the ludicrous speed upgrade, 2.8 seconds. Like, this is how I would choose the car, is simply how fast would you like to go? Like, how amazing is this?
And by the way, the chat room was like noting like that I made a Spaceballs joke. I didn't make a Spaceball joke. Tesla made it. These are the actual names. Insane Mode and Ludicrous Mode are their brand names for these like software update packages or whatever. Like, they are making Spaceball references, not me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I would also like to go on record that I will be completely stunned and will buy you a coffee of your choice, Marco, as much as I hate to say this, if you do not end up with the maximum level Tesla available. Because that is the only way you know how to buy things.
Well, I definitely would not get ludicrous. You know, it is still possible.
Well, no, but you say that. Here's how it would happen. If the seats that you find the most comfortable are only available in the ones ludicrous, you're getting in a car.
No,
it's so true.
If I do get a Tesla, which is looking increasingly likely, but again, I still do want to drive one again before I make that decision. But if I do get a Tesla, it's really to me between the 90D and the P90D. I would not get the insane, crazy. I would get insane, but not ludicrous. These names are stupid.
Yeah. To me, the P90D counts. I agree with you that ludicrous speed is pretty much not going to happen. I will agree with that.
Right. Like if I bought a new M5, I would not get the competition package, which is like it's a similar kind of price to gain ratio there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that is crazy and I don't care. I don't need it. The only reason I would go with the P85 or P90D in this case would be if the 90 really just feels anemic, and I don't think it does. I think the 85/90D is really very similar in performance to the M5.
It's similar, but if memory serves, I don't recall the M5 0 to 60 time off the top of my head, but I believe it is
something like 4.2 or something.
See, I think it's a little quicker than that.
Maybe 3.9. I don't know.
See, that's the thing. The 85D is listed at 4.2, and I think you're right. I think the M5 is like just eking it in under 4 seconds. And I bet you that'll be enough of a difference, as silly as it sounds, that's going to push you to the P85D.
No, because all he'll feel is the instant torque from 0 miles an hour. Like he'll feel the acceleration from 0 to 20 and 30. Like I said, I think the only thing that will drive him to the big fancy models is like trim level or option differences.
Right, and there really aren't you have to go to the P if you want the spoiler that I think looks bad in person. I don't know what the deal is with these spoiler designs. So the problem is the Tesla Model S is a kind of like a fat bottomed car. It's one of those like wide bottoms that a lot of large sedans have these days.
Big bottom, you're making a Spinal Tap reference and you don't even know it.
Right, exactly. So whatever reference I'm making, it has like a wider bottom than like the passenger cabin above it. So it kind of looks like a hovercraft almost, like this cushion around the base. And the spoiler is not the full width of the trunk, because the full it almost looks like it looks like a mustache almost up there.
Well, you can't get the commercial skipping on the
That's all right. I feel too bad about it.
They're not gonna give that to you in a software update. They want you to get the whole new model.
Yeah, it looks like I can't get the red brake calipers, but I can get everything else.
hugely important question. I want you to think about this and choose wisely. Will you or will you not get the rear-facing seats?
That is a very good question.
I'm kind of not kidding, because, oh my God, I remember having a wagon when we were kids that had the rear-facing seats, and it was terrible, but also delightful.
I'm gonna give a thumbs down on those.
So we have some friends with a Tesla, and they have the rear-facing seats, and it is really nice if you have to transport a whole bunch of kids around, but we don't. And I'm probably going to be getting it on a 3-year lease, and it's like, within the next 3 years, am I going to have 3 more kids? Probably not.
And also, you'd only put the kids you don't really care about back there, because that's like the death seat in the case of a rear-end collision.
Well, the rumor or the story behind it is that because Elon Musk has a bunch of kids, he made those like the safest seats in the whole car. There's like extra roll cage around it and everything.
Well, there's a 5-point harness from the looks of it.
Yeah, it is, and rear-facing is actually statistically safer. That's why car seats for infants are rear-faced for a while, basically as long as they can be. The safety is not as much of a concern for me there. The bigger concern for me is first of all that I just wouldn't use them. Like I don't think I need them, and also some of the owners who have them say that the biggest problem back there is that there's no HVAC stuff back there, so it gets really hot because they're sitting under the rear windshield, and there's some vents that serve the back seats, the regular back seats, but they don't reach all the way back there. So like if it's like a hot sunny day, it's going to be pretty hot back there. It also is just kind of weird when you have to load and unload your kid from your trunk. But regardless, if I had a really big family, I would consider it. Although, honestly, the Model X, I think, would be a much better way to serve that, because it's actually a proper 3-row car. But this, for my needs, I have 1 kid. I can foresee in the next 3 years having at most 2 kids total. So, I really don't think I would need more than that. So I'm not going to do the. I would not order that.
I like the someone put in the chat room a YouTube video of P85D versus the Ferrari 458, and I just assumed the Ferrari would lose because it's an older model Ferrari, and it's a straight line test. Obviously, you're not doing handling tests in this giant battery, but so the Tesla beats it off the line, but you wait a couple seconds, the Ferrari passes it, and I feel better about it. I feel all is right in the world again.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this, I would definitely take this down a little, like sporty level. Like I wouldn't get the giant 21-inch wheels. I just get the 19s, which are still big. But it's just, yeah. I feel like I've had my like really hardcore sports car. I guess, well, people would question that, but I've had my like super sports car phase, and I think I'm moving past that now into just, okay, I want things to still be nice and fast, but I also want it to be quiet.
I like how your super sports car was already an old man's car, like the M5, like the 5 Series. It's already the grandpa car. Like it wasn't even the M3. Like you did have your 1M. I understand. Like that was kind of that phase.
Yeah, I had that for like 8 months.
Yeah, but you went right to the grandpa. It's like, you know what? I need something with bench seats in the front.
Yeah, no, and I will also. So Twilling in the chat is asking, so you won't miss shifting. I think I talked about this when I test drove the Tesla, but the big thing is, the reason I shift is not because I love shifting so much. I enjoy it; it's fun, but I don't really need to shift. The reason I shift my cars now, the reason I drove stick as long as I could, and now I drive the DCT, and why I don't like automatics ever, is because I always know what I want the car to be doing. I always know, and you guys know this because you drive stick. I always, I know that if I'm approaching something where I'm gonna stop, I know I can, downshift to do that or whatever. I know what gear I want to be in at any given point, and I know things that an automatic transmission can't know. And so like I always want power to be accessible to me at any speed, and I keep the gear such that I can do that. So there are things that I really enjoy about being able to control the power delivery of the car through shifting manually. And with the DCT, the reason I don't miss the clutch at all. The DCT is, a lot of people who haven't driven them might assume that it's like the like Tiptronic manual shifting mode of automatic transmissions, and it's not. It really is much more like a clutchless stick. Like it behaves a lot more like a stick than it does. It does not behave like an automatic that takes your suggestions sometimes. So it is great for me because I never cared about the clutch. I just cared about being sure I knew what gear I was in and selecting it and not having it second guess me and not having 9 gears to pick from. So the electric, when I was driving the Tesla on that test drive, the reason I didn't miss having some kind of gear shift ability is because it was always with power available doing the right thing. It was always doing what I wanted. I never felt the need to manually control it because just the nature of electrics being basically gearless, it was just it removed the need for me to do any of that. So all the reasons why I shift no longer applied and were no longer necessary. Now, there are, I would probably still miss it to a certain degree just because it's like this fun activity. You kind of feel like you're doing something manually. It's kind of fun. But while I was driving the Tesla, I didn't miss it at all. And that is something that I've never been able to say about an automatic, even the best automatics, even when trying to manually shift them. I've never been able to say that for an automatic.
Yeah, I don't drive DCT cars regularly. In fact, to the best of my recollection, the last DCT car I drove was yours. And I do like it as that, as a 2-pedal transmission can go. But there is nothing quite like ripping off like a really great 1-2 upshift or like a 3-2 downshift while you're turning, while you're braking. There's nothing quite like that. And I'm skeptical my next car will have 3 pedals because I don't know that whatever car I end up wanting to buy will be available that way. But I'm going to hold on to them as long as I possibly can. And I'm already ruining the day that I'm going to have to give that up. That's so sad.
You'll survive.
I will, but I'll be sad about it.
You think you'll be sad? I'll be the saddest because Casey, did you ever have a non-stick car?
Nope.
All right. Well, anyway, both of us have never had a non-stick car, but when the time finally comes and you can't get the car that you want, you're going to get like, you know, an automated manual essentially, and I'm going to be stuck with an actual slush box torque converter automatic, or worse, a CVT. That's what I'm going to be stuck with. In the range of cars that I buy, they're not going to have a really nice, you know, snappy automated manual. They're going to have a slush box, or I won't buy a CVT. I just won't. Like I'll find a different car.
Maybe that can finally push you to get like the car that you really want.
Yeah, I think Hondas do have that on several of their models. I just don't look at those at all. But like that is the worst. But you know, every time like if I bring my car in and they have like a loaner car for you to drive or whatever, I just automatics. I'm like, oh, I can't believe people live like this. I can't take it.
Yeah, it's the worst. Like I drive Erin's car periodically, and I really genuinely like her car. She has a couple generation old now Mazda 6, and it's a very nice car. But that transmission, oh god, it's so terrible.
You just like you push the pedal and you just hear the engine. It's like, what are you doing, engine? And then you have to figure out, what do I have to do with this pedal to make you understand that you are in the wrong gear right now? And then it's like, all right. It is the worst.
It is the worst. It is absolutely the worst.
Yeah, it automatics. It makes it feel like you're just wasting this good engine. It's like you have this perfectly good engine in there. If you just connect it directly to the wheels, it would work great. But you don't. You have this maple syrup between.
It's just in the wrong gear too much of the time because it can't read your mind. And so the only thing it has is like, well, I can look at all my sensors and all the pedal position, and I'll try to figure out what you mean. And it's like, you don't know what I'm about to take this turn. I should already be in second gear.
Exactly.
Or I don't even know what gear you're in. Like it should, I don't want to have to do something with the controls of the car to convince you to go into second. You should already be there. And I would be if I was driving the car, but I'm not. Especially in cars that have no power, like the ones that I buy. It's really important to be in the right gear, otherwise the thing just becomes a slug, and then like in the middle of the turn lurches into whatever next gear you're supposed to be in. It's just a mess.
Yeah, it's rough. And
I forget what it's like. I think like, well, you know, modern automatics are good, and maybe they are on like luxury cars and stuff, like where it's
No, they're not. I'm telling you, they're not. Like they're just as bad as, well, not just as bad, but they're almost as bad.
I mean, they have like 9 gears now on the fancy cars, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the problems too. Like if you try to manually shift the automatics now, like even the quote sport automatics, you know, like Tiff's has 8 gears. The new 7 Series, I believe, has 9. And the reason that, you know, they do this for increased fuel efficiency, and one of the ways they do this is by cramming a whole bunch of gears at the bottom of the range. So these aren't all like additional overdrives.
Yeah, they're slicing up the entire range to give more granularity.
Yeah, and especially so at the bottom, you have to shift around. You have to like where they put gear number 8 on Tiff's car is like where I would have, like, it's like between, on a regular scale, it's between like 2 and 3. Which is a really frequently shifted range. And so not only is that annoying when you're manually shifting it, but also when you're just driving it, you do feel that. You feel that it's making more shifts, it's making more transitions than you would have to in a manual. And also to use fuel efficiency numbers, it always, you know, it tries to jump as fast as it can to the higher gears, and then when you step on it, nothing happens. And, you know, they all have these, like, you know, sport modes, and those are all equally terrible, just in different ways. Like it just never does what you want. And that's why we will always drive manual cars as long as we are able to, until it is no longer necessary.
It's so true.
We haven't even talked about the Model X. That, I think, is a disaster. And like, I guess he really wanted those weird doors, but it's like, nope, bad idea, guy. Like, if you're going to do one with gull-wing doors, it should have been the first frivolous one that only rich people got, not the second one that you're hoping, like, this is going to be the mainstream one because it's like a stupid crossover SUV and it looks gross. It's like, it's not going to be that cheap, and those doors are ridiculous, and just no.
Well, I don't think the doors are as much of a big deal in either direction as everyone else does.
Oh yeah, you say that, but then you're going to try to pop out quickly.
They are a big deal. Not because they're bad. Like you see all the videos of how they like sort of squinch together and try to make room, but because it is really hard to make a door like that reliably. It's not like there's like, we've been making this kind of a door for 75 years. You know, we know how to make it really. Hell, it's really hard to make a regular door reliably. Like just ask Tesla all the, you know, learning curve and just making a reliable, nice car. I think they're finally kind of there with the Model S. But this, I mean, nobody has made good, reliable, problem-free gull-wing doors, including Mercedes. Like, just ask anyone who has one of those cars. Sometimes the door comes unlatched while you're driving, and you just got, like, I guess maybe they did it better on the modern version, but the original going was a mess. Like it's there to be a fanciful frill, but if this is going to be your mainstream car, like that's going to be the main problem with these cars is stupid crap with the doors.
And plus, you got to wait an hour for the damn things to open.
Yeah, that part of it is not bad. And I think that the design and saving space is not bad. It's entirely because this is an exotic, weird design that's going to have problems. And I know they spent a long time trying to make it reliable, but it's their first try. It's guaranteed that this will not be as problem-free as a regular car door. Absolutely guaranteed.
None of this is making it in the show, is it?
No.
Oh, we should put this on SoundCloud or whatever we used to do with ATPs before ATP was a thing.
But the fact we always think people care, but in reality, nobody cares.
They don't. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.